Hi, I'm Sara Davies and I'm from Crafter's Companion, and in this tutorial we're going to be using some of the beautiful dies and embossing folders from the Floral Delight collection in my signature range. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a really delicate background feel using one of the embossing folders just onto a lovely white Centura pearl, and then I'm going to show you some die cutting techniques for the individual elements to make up this beautiful flower here. Really easy to do. So if I put that to one side, we'll start off with the actual die cutting itself. So I'm using the cut and emboss machine from Craftwell because it's a nice, really strong, powerful machine, okay? And what I'm going to do is I've got some coloured Centura pearl, so I've got some of the mink and some of the lemon, and I'm going to cut some of the floral die. So what we do is we place them face down into the design that we're going to cut. So you've got lots of different flowers across these different collections, different sizes that work really well together. And then I'm going to cut some of the leaves and flourishes that we've got from the mink cardstock. This is just a slight different finish, and I'm just mixing and matching all the different flower and leaf and flourish designs that we've got on this card, just to give you an idea of all the different dies in the collection. So you make your sandwich up, and because these are just thin metal dies, you just make the sandwich exactly as per the instructions for thin metal dies. So you have your D plate on the bottom, and then we're going to have the magnetic sheet and the B plate, and then you sandwich your dies and the material between the two A plates. Now these are universal dies, so they're going to work with all of your different die cutting and embossing machines. So the first time through machine does all of your die cutting. So if I show you, on the underside here you can see it's cut out each one of those flowers and leaves. But we don't just want to die cut them. What we're going to do is bring in the rubber embossing mat and then actually emboss them. So what this does is now it pushes the fibres of the cardstock into anywhere that there's a gap, which is where we've designed for them to be embossed detail, and it's going to give you a real three-dimensional feel to these, okay? So while that's coming through, let me show you what we're going to emboss onto. I've taken another piece of the lemon card and matted inlaid a small square of the Centura pearl, and it's the Centura pearl that we're actually going to emboss. And this is the embossing folder that we're going to be using. So what you do is you just lie your pearl in there, just look at where you want the designs to appear. So I think I'm quite happy with that selection there. I'll take my dies out of here. Don't need the rubber embossing mat anymore or the extra B shim. That embossed piece just goes in between the two A plates, and again you just offer that into the machine. And while that's embossing, I can pop these out and show you what I mean when I said that we had the embossed design on all of these. Because when we push this through, you can see, with that being Centura pearl, you can see the lovely detailed emboss that we've got on there. And you'll get that with every single piece that comes out. So you can see we've got different styles of flowers, but flowers that all match perfectly on here. So I've just die cut plenty of flowers, and even a little tiny one for the centre. And what we can do is just build that up. I'm just going to shape these leaves. You see, I'm just doing it between my fingers. And then we've got a slightly different, I've done two of these ones. So I'm going to shape one outwards and one inwards. And then to stick them together, I'm going to use a little bit of the tacky glue. It takes a little bit longer to dry than the 3D glue gel would, but it's going to give us a really nice tack. So I'm just rubbing them together in my fingers, and I'm going to slightly offset these. Yep, so that will literally grab in between my fingers in just a couple of seconds. And then the inner one, I'm going to flick these up. Again, a tiny little bit of the tacky glue, and I'm going to hold that in the centre, always slightly offsetting them. And you can shape these. I know a lot of people like to shape flowers on rubber embossing mats. So then the next piece just shapes upwards, and I love these dies. I always kind of call them build a flower, because it is just about making your own styles of flowers. Let's have a look. I've got tiny bit more glue on there than what I need. So that one will come into the centre, and they're all designed that they'll slightly offset because they're all matching dies, these ones. And then finally, let's just take the little tiny one into the centre, and then another tiny little bit of glue on the inside there, and that's just going to sit in the very centre there. And I'm just going to hold that in place for a couple of seconds to get that to perfectly stick down. And I think no flower is complete without a little gem in the centre, so I'm just going to use my Easy Crystal applicator to finish that off and cover over that central piece. So I'll pop that to one side while we layer up the rest of the card. So my embossing's been done, and you can see there, just because it's a 6x6 folder doesn't mean you need to emboss a full panel of 6x6. I've just cut a much smaller piece here, and I'm just going to mat and layer that onto a piece of the lemon Centura, and the coloured Centura card really does have that beautiful shine to it. So there's the lemon, and then the rest of my base card here, what I've done is I've just taken a plain white 7x7 card base, and I'm just going to mat and layer with Centura on top of it. And matting and layering does really draw the eye into the centre of your card. And whenever I'm doing flat matting and layering, I'd always recommend using our Crafter's Companion tape pens, because they're so ultra strong, you know that your card is never going to come apart. With other brands of tape pens, I've found that when I've made cards in the past, they have had the tendency to lift, or especially if they're on a mantelpiece or near a radiator, a little bit of heat on them will just make them lift a bit. So if you want the convenience of a tape pen, make sure you get a one that's going to be strong enough to support the styles of cards you want to make. So you see how that matting and layering does just really focus your eye on the centre. But notice I'm only layering very small elements of the coloured designs. We've got predominantly, you're always seeing the white, and it's just that splash of colour which gives it the elegance without being too overpowering. That's just going to sit in the centre. There we go. Now we're ready to add some of our swirls in. So you know I was saying about embossing. So anywhere that we have a hole, a gap on this side, it's going to give you an embossed piece. So we've got embossing on all of our designs here. And if I just show you, when we start and release these, because we're using the Centura Pearl, you can see that beautiful embossed finish on each one of these. And this is such a simple card to do. I think the elegance that you've got in the dies and the embossed pieces means that you really don't need to do an awful lot on the card, because you've got that lovely professional embossed finish. So there's all of our different components that we're going to work with. And all you do is, especially if you're using the 3D glue gel, just put a nice, I'm going to make sure this is opening the right way. I'm going to open this from the top. I'm going to put a nice globule of glue, not an overly thick one, but that's going to form my base piece. And I'm going to have my swirls lifting from this. Now what you could have done if you wanted is you could have used the stick it, if you wanted a really professional stick on these, if you wanted them to stick all the way down. As it was, I know that as long as I've got them stuck in the centre, the glue's going to hold it for me, no problem. So I'm just sticking a few pieces coming out of here. And the great thing about using the glue gel is you've got that manoeuvrability time. So if you ever want to go back in and adjust it, you can do. And then the flower goes over the centerpiece. So you can see it just looks like it's got those beautiful swirls coming from it. And I can feel how strong that flower is because we use the collal glue. And then I've just stamped Best Wishes from one of the stamps in the Floral collection, just to finish this off. And this will go in the top corner. And there we have it, a really elegant, beautiful, simple floral card.